Hey, who do you think's better, Megadeth or Metallica? Metallica's way better. Nuh-uh, Megadeth. Nuh-uh, Metallica. Nuh-uh, nuh-uh. Hey, look at them. There they are, beating that dead horse. Get 'em! Ooh, wow, Metallica versus Megadeth. This hasn't been done before. This is such an original idea for a video. Metallica versus Megadeth, the final showdown. Getting in on the ground floor for this one. But hey, when you're a small channel like me and you have one video that gets 300,000 views because reasons, I think the algorithm's telling you, hey, more content like this, please. So yeah, this is not a video I ever felt like making, but I figured since I don't want to make it, I might as well have some fun with the fact that I am making it and sort of poke fun at the whole idea that, you know, one band has to be better than the other. I'll say this a billion times, but music is not a competition, it's all about expression. And with all that out of the way, let's compare and contrast Megadeth and Metallica because it's something that's never been done before. You can really see a direct correlation between bands like Black Sabbath and then the new wave of British heavy metal bands, particularly Tigers of Pantang, Angel Witch, Motorhead, Raven, those sorts of bands with the type of riff writing that James Hetfield was doing in the 1980s. The riffs on Kill 'Em All seem like Motorhead and Raven, but just on steroids a bit. Not that that's a bad thing, most bands usually do kind of live in the shadow of their influences for their first album. But as Metallica progressed with Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets, their riffs got much bigger. You could really see them taking the Black Sabbath sound but updating it for the 1980s with songs like For Whom the Bell Tolls, Leper Messiah, and even their faster songs like Disposable Heroes or Ride the Lightning or Fight Fire with Fire still have a real weight to their riffs. And Dave Mustaine certainly had a lot of the same influences with his riff writing as James Hetfield did, but I think on those first couple of Megadeth albums, you can also see him pulling from darker, heavier, more modern bands at the time. Bands like Merciful Fate and Venom. And given that he also had Gar Samuelson and Chris Poland on those first two albums, two amazing musicians who, before they played metal, were playing jazz, I feel like the rhythm guitar and the riffs on those first couple of Megadeth albums really do feel as though that they are something newer than Metallica was at the time. Think of songs like Love to Death, The Skull Beneath the Skin, My Last Words, Good Morning Black Friday. A lot of these riffs are kind of playing on single notes and are taking from the new wave of British heavy metal, but feel as though that they're not relying on the same techniques to give them weight and power, if that makes any sense. It can be really difficult to make more melodic playing based on single notes sound heavy, but Dave Mustaine was still able to do that because he had just such ferocity in his playing. With that in mind, I would say that Metallica's riffs felt more classic and heavier in the traditional doomy Black Sabbath sense, but more often than not, especially in the early years, I feel as though Megadeth was really trying out something new and experimenting with new ways to get the guitars to sound heavy. So which of those is better? Which of these two bands had the better drumming? Well, okay, so Lars Ulrich gets way too much crap, but even still, come on. Gar Samuelson, Nick Menza, Chris Adler, Sean Drover. Megadeth really does have an unfair advantage if you're comparing just raw musical talent because they've had so many amazing guitar players, bass players, drummers in and out of the band over the years. I think that Gar Samuelson is a really overlooked drummer when people talk about the progression of extreme metal drumming. Nick Menza did not have as much swing as Gar, but he just had so much power to make up for it. I got to meet Sean Drover once. He was a really cool guy, hung out for about half an hour talking music, and he was also great for the albums he played on. Although I want to make it clear that I'm not trashing on Lars. I really love his drumming, especially on those early albums, and for me personally, I've never really minded his drumming on later albums. I do get the sense that sometime in the 1990s when Metallica became the biggest band in existence, he kind of had to take on way more responsibilities with just the running of the band, and he kind of lost his passion for drumming. It kind of became more about the business, which I'm not going to hate on him for that because if I was in his position, maybe I'd feel the same way. I do remember one of my best friends who is an amazing drummer say that it doesn't seem as though Lars enjoys drumming anymore, and when he's up there on stage, his technique is really bad. He's kind of pushing through to the drum. He's not letting the drumstick bounce off, so he was saying he thinks Lars should retire just for his own good if he's not enjoying it anymore. For me personally, I've never hated his drumming, but I do recognize, like, yeah, something happened. There's still plenty of examples on those first couple of albums, especially songs like Dyer's Eve, Fight Fire with Fire, Battery, where I'm listening to the drums and I'm like, this is awesome. This is really good. Megadeth still wins that round, although I'm kind of forgetting to keep score, so. And so now we talk about which band is the bigger band and has... I don't think for a second that just because a musical artist is more popular, that means that they are objectively better than other musical artists. But it is worth considering that Metallica is the standard bearer for heavy metal. Maybe not for people like you or me, but for a lot of people, if they think metal, they think Metallica. For a lot of metalheads though, I think it is probably a comforting thought that Metallica is this massive band. They have metal in the name, and there is at least one metal band that has had this level of success. I mean, you know, if you are thinking about just in terms of commercial success, Metallica is the greatest metal band. Another interesting aspect to compare between the two bands is lyrics. While a lot of the times they talk about similar subject matters, especially early on in the 1980s and early 90s, I feel as though Megadeth has kind of stayed closer to what they were in those early days, where Metallica has sort of more often than not drifted away and become more introspective with their lyrics. Early on, Megadeth lyrics were also a bit darker than Metallica lyrics. You could really see the influence of bands like Merciful Fate in songs like Bad Omen, Good Morning Black Friday, Looking Down the Cross, Love to Death, The Skull Beneath the Skin. I mean, the lyrics to Good Morning Black Friday in particular, that is like some proto-death metal or Norwegian black metal stuff right there. And while they also had a lot of similarities, compare a song like Fight Fire with Fire to Set the World Afire. I do think that typically Dave Mustaine has more interesting lyrics even when the bands are covering similar topics. And while there are a lot of good Metallica lyrics, I mean, there's a lot of Megadeth songs that have some of my favorite metal lyrics of all time. Hook and Mouth, How the Story Ends, Countdown to Extinction, Euthanasia, Holy Wars, the list can go on. And it's not to say that Metallica has bad lyrics by any means. I just think that more often than not, Megadeth will find a way to make the subject of their song less abstract and more concrete by really painting a picture in your head with the words they choose. Even people who don't like Dave Mustaine cannot deny he has a way with words, and he certainly has a lot of wit. And while the best Metallica songs certainly have amazing lyrics, I'm Looking at You one, I do think that they are more often than not kind of just on the safer side. I do also want to point out though that when Megadeth has bad lyrics, they're really bad though. America Stan. Oof. And that comes to the actual singing of the band and who do I think is the better singer. And honestly, I think that and then of course we gotta talk about which band has the better lead guitar playing, and of course once again, this is a situation where Kirk Hammett gets way too much hatred thrown at him. Seriously, lay off. It is an unfair comparison as well because by the time Dave formed Megadeth, you had Yngwie Malmsteen hit the scene, and all of a sudden the shredding that was considered insane a couple years ago was just okay. But yeah, look, come on. Marty Friedman, Jeff Young, Chris Poland, Kiko Loureiro, Chris Broderick. All of those guitar players are absolutely incredible, but of course my personal favorite is going to be Marty Friedman. He just has this absolutely beautiful style, and it's like David Gilmour if David Gilmour could shred, but not David Gilmour because it's Marty Friedman, and every single person has their own unique way of playing guitar. So with all my rambling, I forgot to keep score about who is winning, but then again, that's kind of the whole purpose of this video, so I guess the only question I can answer is, who do I listen to more? And that's an easy answer. Marty Friedman solo albums. In all honesty though, if someone forced me to choose and they were like, you have got to pick one, Megadeth or Metallica, and I noticed that behind them were a couple of guys with baseball bats giving me dirty looks, I guess I would say I prefer Megadeth. If I'm in the mood to listen to Megadeth, Metallica isn't going to cut it. But if I kind of want to listen to Metallica, I could put on some Megadeth and feel fine. So there you have it. That is the definitive proof of who's better, Megadeth or Metallica. Oh wait, no it's not. But enough about me and my dumb ramblings about this. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. What are some of the aspects of Megadeth's music you really appreciate, and what are some of the things about Metallica that you really like and respect? I love to talk about music with people, and so any random thoughts you have, sure. And this is all just in good fun, not meant to be taken seriously, because this topic has been getting talked about for, what, 40 years now, and I mean, I don't take it seriously. I love music, but I still don't take this seriously. I mean, come on. And if you enjoyed this video, if you like this sense of humor, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, all of that YouTube stuff. I know it's a cliche to ask, but this is a small channel, so doing stuff like that really, really helps, and I really appreciate it. And there's probably another video popping up around here you might also like. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you at the next video. No. Oh my god, did you hear my show?